Hi, thanks for joining me. My guest today is Mike Delich. And Mike, you're well known in this area for a lot of things. And I'm actually really happy that you came and decided to talk to me about all of the things that you're involved with, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about you. You're actually one of those good guys. You just hide it.
Thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I know that there's all kinds of things that we could talk about. But first of all, I'm going to say, how long have you been in Fernie? Because I always remember you here.
Well, you know what, we first moved to Fernie in 1978 when we finished business school. We chose Fernie as a place to move with my wife and my one daughter. And, you know, we purchased a house and I started working in the coal mining industry. However, my first visits to Fernie were in the late 1960s for ski racing events, excuse me, when I was an athlete. So I'd always come to Fernie in the late 1960s, the early 1970s, and even the mid 1970s when I was a ski coach. And I was always impressed with the majestic Rocky Mountains, the snow, the quaintness of downtown. And I said, wow, this would be a wonderful place to be. And then, 10 years later, we found ourselves living in Fernie, so it was a great move for us.
So after you were married, did you still live in your hometown of Rossland? Because is that not where you're from?
Yeah, no, I'm from Rossland in the West Kootenays, which is another historic mining town, yes. A ski town. And no, I worked for Cominco, the mining company there, from 1973 to 1977. I was a ski coach within the Red Mountain program. Went back to business school in Ontario, and then after business school, we were looking for a community, a town to relocate to. So it was a major metropolitan area or a town like Fernie. So we selected Fernie, and that was in 1978.
Well, I'm glad you chose Fernie, because you've made a lot of positive changes here, which I hope we can touch on.
Yeah, that was great. You know, when we came here, we liked to be involved in the community. I was a ski coach on the weekends, a volunteer. My late wife Joan was involved with the music program. She would go to the Tom Uphill or the other homes and do Christmas concerts for the people. And then she started a program that's known as the Kinder Gym in Fernie.
Which is still going on.
For nearly 30 years. So
yeah. Is it only 30?
1985, 35 years. 35
yeah,
years.
I thought it was...
Celebrated 35 years. And it's really good that all these mothers, and each year have taken over, and that's a wonderful legacy for, it's great for the social values of a community.
Absolutely.
And then, I was working at the mining, with the different mining companies, and but at the same time I was always involved with ski racing. That was my true passion. And after the Calgary Olympics, which I was deeply involved with, there was an opportunity to join the Socher family at the ski resort, and I said, that would be great. So I said, it was a chance to live in Fernie, not commute to the coal mines, and to live a dream. So in 1989, I resigned from the coal mining companies and started working with the Socher family at the ski resort.
Ah, I didn't realize that that's how, because I've known you as a builder, and I know you're involved with, the skiing part of it. But weren't you also heavily involved, and still are, with the Olympics in some way? Oh,
well, I organized the men's speed events, or the downhills, the marquee events for the Calgary Olympics. And then in 2006, I was asked to organize, or officiate rather, the Olympics in Torino, Italy. So I was over there for almost 4 weeks officiating those ski races. But through those years, I was involved with an organization called FIS, the governing body of ski racing. So as a volunteer, I would go to Korea, to Europe, all through the United States, all through Canada, officiating ski races, mainly at the World Cup or the Continental Cup level. So I got to travel to all these ski resorts, you know, and I would come back and take those ideas and say, geez, how can we implement them in Fernie? And that's how essentially I got started doing what I've been doing for over 30 years now.
Weren't you in Russia as well?
No, I never went to Russia.
To
no, I was just the 2 Olympics, and you know, I think it's wonderful to be involved, but I also, on a personal philosophy, I also think it's good to let other people have those opportunities.
Yeah, that's true too. Because you've had once you've experienced things a few times, you don't really need to keep repeating it.
Yeah, but having said that, on Russia, I think my daughter was there as a physiotherapist with the Canadian ski team in Sochi, Russia. And then she went to the Olympic Games in Korea as a physiotherapist with the Canadian speed skating team, with the one fellow that won the gold medal. So yes, the Deliches were in Russia. It just wasn't.
Well, I thought I heard the name. I thought it was you. I didn't realize. Yeah. So which one of your daughters is the physiotherapist?
It's Jennifer, the youngest one, and she was actually born on December the 1st in 1980, and the snowbanks were so steep. We were driving down Main Street, Fernie, and I said, oh my gosh, are we going to make it? And my wife was nervous, and we pulled in to emergency, and the doctor, our family doctor, was Dr. Ewart.
Yeah, I remember him well.
So he delivered Jenny, and then I can always remember coming back, and when she came out of a hospital on a Saturday, and my other daughter, my eldest daughter, Julia, was skiing down the driveway, and she was just 2. So that's my early memories of her birth year in Fernie.
Yeah, well, you remembered those big, tall
snowbanks
that we had. We used to get.
Yeah. So those were my, those were the early years in Fernie, and at those years, I was involved with, helping to built the Fernie Family Center, to raise the government funding and adding that, and that's a key part of the Fernie public buildings, and that's been that way since 1988. Yeah. So that's proud to help out there as well.
I remember when you built the house in what we used to call Pine Grove. I think it's still called Pine Grove, because for Fernieites who didn't have too many new buildings, that was quite impressive. Always remember that, everybody admiring that house.
Yeah, well, I think it was, we had a dog. We had the 2 daughters, so we had to build the fence around it. Then, of course, we had a trampoline in the back and gymnastic sets and all those monkey bars. And then landscaping is a passion of ours, so we did all the landscaping around it. So.
Well, you have a lot of interests. You're just throwing the landscaping at one. Well,
that's what we do it on a regular basis. But then when I, in 1989, when I left the mining companies, it was the right time. The mining companies were having a bit of a struggle, and as I said, I joined the Sochers, and what we had to do is come up with a plan of how we were going to build and grow, the ski resort. So that was our first step, was coming up with a plan.
So you were right on the ground level.
Yeah, in fact, what we did in 1989, I spoke to Heiko and Linda, and we decided to do a master plan for the resort. And what we didn't want to do, we didn't want to make a little plan, because that would not stir people's imaginations. So we decided to do a big plan, and we wanted to aim high with a logical, noble approach, and that's what we proceeded to do. So we brought in an architect from California by the name of Eldon Beck, who had done most of the villages and the layouts for the big ski company called Interwest. And then we brought up Cornerstone Architecture out of Vancouver and Hendricks out of Vancouver, and they were the architects down on Granville Island. So they conceived the whole Granville Island, amenity on the waterfront in Vancouver. And what we did, we had chairlifts going up Cedar Valley. We had them going up Curry Bowl, you know, most are in the same location. We had them into Timber Bowl, and then even, you know, one lift in the Siberia Bowl, and we had a little village around that, you know, and it's interesting, most of the buildings that are up at the resort today were almost exactly as, you know, that 3-day planning session. So, but we, you know, we had that plan, and that we just continued that plan, you know, right up, you know, you know, they're still following it at the resort, and you know, I was proud to be part of those early days.
Yeah, that does a really. I remember each time there was a chair, it was like huge news in the town. It was a really uplifting information to get out there.
Oh, no, it was, and really you know, I was mainly involved with the, you know, the large lodges, the timber frame buildings, the, you know, the ski in, ski out properties. So that brought the travelers in, the tourists. It brought the investors in, and then what that allowed the ski company to do was grow, because they had the ski revenue, but then there was also the demand for the restaurants. There was a demand for the sporting goods stores and other service, the other amenities. And you know, when the Eldon Beck, the renowned architect, came to Fernie, he looked around and he looked at what we were doing and says, "This is good." And he says, "How are the summers?" And we said, "Boy, there's spectacular. There's the river flowing through. There's the Rocky Mountains, and you know, the snow's good. And we've got a historic downtown, and we're right on, you know, a main provincial highway." And he says, "Well, what you have to do then is go quickly and make sure you incorporate the summer into all your plans." So if you notice, that's why there's a lot of the lodges, there's swimming pools, there's outdoor restaurants, and the landscape, as I said, is, you know, spectacular with the, you know, the tall grasses, all the coniferous or the deciduous trees around the lodges. So
yeah, it's so beautiful up there. And you were the first one to do that, because I don't think there were condominiums in town before you built.
No, there was the Grizz Inn was, you know, the early.
Was that first?
Yeah, that was 1980. But then Timberline and Snow Creek, those were all built in 1999 to about 2001, 2002.
So you were involved with Snow Creek, right? Because I can't recall the name of the skier.
It was actually an athlete that I coached when she was young in Roslyn. Her name was Karen Lee Gartner.
Oh, right, that's right.
And then she came down, and she was my partner in the development of that building and the cabins. And you know, it's interesting. One of the you know, the words that we had as our guiding principles were to make sure it was enduring, to make sure that it was architecturally well done, and make sure that you know, the people were enjoying it. And you know, you go up and you look at that building over 20 years later now, and it's still a majestic looking building. So, and you know, Karen and her husband Max were you know, they were strong supporters. In fact, they lived in Fernie for about 4 years. But then when Max went back coaching with the Canadian ski team, and Karen went to CBC, the broadcaster, they thought it would be better to be based in Calgary. So that's that was the involvement that we all had building the resort.
Well, certainly the ski hill was the catalyst for tourism in Fernie, really. I mean, it's great that we have all these other things like the fishing, but it was the ski hill that actually drew everybody in, and the fact that it was such a quality ski hill.
No, and I fully agree, and we're really lucky, you know, in Fernie, because we do have a diversified economy. You know, we have the lumber or forestry industry, we have the very strong mining industry, we have the highway, but we have that tourism sector that has allowed Fernie to grow and sustain itself. And you look at around the other parts of our province that were just based on essentially one mill, you know, it's a tough time right now in these other communities. So we've been really fortunate with our local economy.
And with the location that's allowed us to be able to diversify the way we have. But also to have people like you and Heiko who saw the possibilities and were able to make them happen.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you have to do in our business, you have to have that vision.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as I said, I was fortunate that I had traveled to so many other resorts and communities, and I saw that. I said, boy, we can do that here. You know, we've got the river, we have the mountains, we have the snow, we have the summer temperatures, we have downtown. So let's just go.
Let's do it.
That's
We're going to take that little break.
Okay.
So you got into the building,
Mm-hmm.
and not only have you built up at the ski hill, but you also developed around the golf course.
Yeah. Well, you know, the golf course is again an amenity. You know what, Fernie is so fortunate compared to, you know, other mountain towns, is it's very flat. So we saw that there was an opportunity to have a subdivision, essentially as an island within the golf course, where you could build homes and the people could walk to town. You know, that project was started in 1998, but it took until about 2015 for the lots to sell. But there's there was controls on it for design and controls for landscape, but now it's a very sought after place to live.
Oh, I bet. Are there any lots left?
No, it's sold out. You know, there could be some. They're all sold. There could be more, you know, multifamily down there in the future. That's more towards a clubhouse.
I was going to say, so there's a flat area.
Yeah.
Is that buildable or?
Yeah, no, that's all zoned and that's all ready to go. But that's, you know, we just have to wait for the timing to be ready on that.
No, because I wondered. Actually, somebody asked me not long ago. They said, "Can they build there?" I said, "I don't think so." But then I thought, it is quite flat, and there's lighting and sidewalks.
Yeah, no, it's a great place. In fact, personally, I lived in Fernie, moved to the resort for 20 years, and about in 2012 I moved down to the golf course, and I very much like it because it's, you know, the sunshine is there's lots of sunshine, there's less snow, the days aren't quite as gray, and you can walk to the river, you can walk to the grocery stores or the downtown. So I quite enjoy being in that area.
It's an ideal location, really, because you've got groceries and all kinds of amenities right there, a couple blocks down.
And then we were also involved with a couple of other enterprises in downtown. We with John Burrell, who was the former president of Island Lake, we took the old McLeod's building and the flower shop, and we put
Just hang on, because he needs. Remember where we were?
We're talking about the McLeod store.
Oh right, McLeod's.
You know. And then we were also. Are you ready, Patrick?
Yep.
Okay. We were also involved with other projects in the community. We purchased the old McLeod's building, which was next to the Mendick Bakery, and that just had a facade on it, brick facade. So we put new glass, new doorways, the green, the green tones and the wood, and we divided that into 3 or 4 retail spaces.
Really amazing, because it was just one giant
florist
craft
box. Yeah.
Yeah, that you didn't realize how huge it really was until you separated it all.
Until Barry actually sold it to us. And then now, if you look at many of the travel images of Fernie, it's got the Fernie General Store in it. So
absolutely.
So we're quite proud of that one. We were involved with, as I mentioned, the Fernie Family Center, but then as another volunteer endeavor with a colleague, Ann Magic, and other volunteers, we proceeded to renovate the Catholic Church, starting in 2004, and we started painting the inside, and we're restoring the windows. We put a new form of slate roof on, and what we did, we took the same principles that we used up at the resort for building. We hired good planners. We hired good not so much architects but interior designers and people that were involved with the professional restoration of buildings. So they actually provided us with the plan and that roadmap. So we've done most of the exterior, we've done the interior, and now we're going to, in the year 2020, we're going to replace the membrane roof, and just to protect the structure. And once again, you know, along with the courthouse, those two buildings are the highest buildings in downtown.
And they're so beautiful.
Yeah,
and
they're beautiful. And you know, the interesting thing with those buildings now is that it's when you go to Europe or New Mexico, the churches are always open for tourists. So you know, the church tried it this year, and they were getting about 8 to 10 tourists walking in to look and to take photographs. You know, in the summer season. So you know, that just adds to the, you know, to the social fabric of Fernie.
Absolutely, and the church is so beautiful. It's changed, of course, because of the way we used to have that railing, the communion railing, and we used to have the pulpit.
Yeah. Well, it's good that the church is moving with the times. So.
Exactly. You know, and it's true. It's changed and it's progressed. Yeah.
And you know, the big tipping point for the town was, you know, the mining companies, of course. The other tipping point is when in 1999 they doubled the size of the ski resort. So they put the lifts up Timberbull, then up to White Pass, and that had headlines around North America. So people had to come and ski that resort that doubled in size. There's not too many resorts that have effectively doubled in size.
But look how many times Fernie makes it to the top 10.
Yeah. They're still doing that.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now, the other tipping point for Fernie is when, with the introduction of broadband or high-speed internet, now so many people can live here and they can work remotely to Calgary or Toronto or even Europe. And they can come out here for 3 months and still work or you know, work in their office and just check in. So we see that, you know, that continuing.
That was really amazing. In fact, I'll just tell you a little story. As mayor, I got an email from TELUS people saying we'd like to come and have a meeting with you. One person, I said absolutely, and so a week later they came and there was like 6 people, and I thought, oh. Okay, so we were in my office, and you know, after the preamble of hello, who we are, they said, we have an offer for you. And I said, what is it? They said, we'd like to put in the high-speed fiber, $10.5 million project. And I thought, oh, we can't afford that. But anyway, they said, we would like to do it free of charge. And I said, please come and do it. Absolutely. So they did a great job. They did not disrupt the town at all. There was only a couple of places where you saw a mound of, you know, gravel or anything. They were very good. So at the end, they had a big reception at the Best Western, and a lot of people from Toronto and different people came, and you know, and they gave away free gifts, and the top person came and shook my hand and thanked me for saying yes, and said in front of everybody, you were the first mayor to say yes.
Yeah.
And I said, you mean that people would say no? I said, you know, you're joking. And they said no. And I said, why would a mayor refuse a $10.5 million gift of this, which is so needed? And they said, because they didn't want to disrupt the town.
Wow. Change, you have to have change in life, Mary.
I still can't get over that. Imagine somebody turning it down.
You know, I was at that function that day.
Were you? Yes, that's right. You were. You spoke.
Yep. And I remember the metric was that the speed of the internet in Fernie was the same as downtown Vancouver.
Right.
So people that just when the news got out, people said we could, you know, we could do that. But so there was, you know, there was that tipping point, and now, you know, I think that, you know, into the future, Fernie will continue to grow. I think we're blessed with, you know, we've had strong leadership at the municipal level and at our provincial level, and so many people buy into the common purpose. You know, they might want a community garden, or they might want an activity or a bike trail, but everybody wants that common purpose of moving forward, and it really helps build our social capital.
Yes.
And as we into the future, I see that, you know, continuing, you know, for into the foreseeable future, and you know, development will continue. You can't stop change.
No, and you don't want to.
No, you don't want to, and I think the standards are there, and you're going to see more multifamily buildings closer to the main town. You know, it's getting more expensive to build outside, outside of the communities. So we'll see that continue into the future. So given that we're so close to the Canadian Rockies International Airport in Cranbrook, Glacier Park International in Kalispell, and Calgary International, we're truly fortunate that that you could, you know, go in anywhere from less than 2 hours to 4 hours. You could be on a plane to anywhere in the world, the United States or Vancouver, and you know. Yeah,
our location is really excellent. That's for sure.
So you know, it's really promising for the future.
Well, I hope to see it even progress to having more than what we even have now to offer.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, it takes the will, it takes community leaders, it takes business leaders to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it takes, you know, leaders in any part that have that vision and that are willing to work together for that common purpose.
Yeah, you definitely need business leaders like yourself, because even as a council, you can have all kinds of plans, but if you don't have the people that are willing to go ahead and
take the risk.
Yes.
Take the risk.
Yes, and so we've had a lot of people take the risks in Fernie, and one of them being not only you, but Heiko Socher. I mean, he bought that school, that old ugly school building that, you know, really underneath was a gorgeous building, and if it wasn't for him keeping that, it could have been demolished, or it could have been left as it was.
You know, that is a marvelous development. You have about 44 units in one block, so the city gets the taxes of those 44 units. You only have to plow around, remove snow around that one block. People are only 2 blocks to the grocery stores or to the food and beverage. So we need more of that style of the buildings and the furniture.
Well, even the Veneto buildings, Heiko had a hand in that, because it was his land that he practically gave away, so that those buildings, and those have 45 units. And where would those people be living if those units weren't there?
No, I agree. You know, Heiko had a vision.
He did.
And he was willing to take a risk, and then he had the you know, the staying power of willing to see it through.
Yes.
But you know what? He's followed by the younger entrepreneurs that are coming, that are following with that same philosophy.
Well, you're still doing things.
We are, and we have you know, quite a few more years to go ahead. But I'm you know what? I'm lucky. I've been able to do what I enjoyed doing, and you know, there's a legacy in some of the buildings and to some of my other activities, so I'm happy.
Yeah, you do a lot of volunteer things too.
Yeah, no, it's you know, helped with the ski coaching. You know, people don't know this, but in 1994, Fernie had a coal operators conference. It brought in 400 people for 4 days, and we had the top mining executives from across Canada in Fernie. And there was no conference center, but we had, I think the Grizz Inn, I think the Park Place, the Elk River Motor Inn, Elk Valley Motor Inn of the late Earl McPeak. Yeah. But you know what, that went off, and we talked, and we had the media, and we had Americans up. But you know what, that was a fun project, or a fun event to do, but that was 25 years ago. So, no, I think, and I see it around now, I'm so happy when I see these younger people in their 20s and 30s volunteering and setting up musical programs, book writing programs, helping out at the art station and or other mountain bike events.
Definitely,
Yeah.
mountain biking is a huge thing in Fernie.
Yeah.
And I remember 18 years ago going to a UBCM conference and going to one of their sessions, and there were people from the provincial government there,
Yeah.
giving us moderators, and somebody brought up how huge mountain biking was going to be, and they said that will be the economic driver for every community. And I remember coming home and writing about that and thinking, wow, because, you know, Fernie really had a vision. When you think of Pat Gilmar and some of those people who started building trails 30 plus years ago, right? Like, they had a vision for the mountain biking, and look how huge it is now.
Yeah. Well, but we also had, you know, in those early days, we had the early events and trails. But then we had some, you know, Canadian athletes. We had, you know, Greg Blackwell and Mark Sontag that were Canadian champions. They were local boys that went away. And then the other organization that I volunteer and help with is Fernie Skiing Heritage, where on a regular basis, where we honor the, you know, the pioneers, the builders, and the sport leaders of our ski and snowboard industries.
You honored somebody this year that was in her 90s, right?
Oh, that was, we did that. Her name was Rhoda Wortel from Montreal, and she went to the 1948 Olympics.
Wow.
And she was in Fernie skiing, so we hosted a gathering, and she just talked and told her story, and people got to ask, and it was, you know, it was wonderful. And her son, who is in his late 50s, was there beside her, and they were talking like a mother and a son up in front of everybody. It was a wonderful.
I bet.
Yeah, we had, you know, a lot of the elders of the community. We had the ski coaches there. We had some family friends from Montreal that were here. So that was a good event. Thank you for remembering that one.
Oh no, I remember that.
Yeah.
You were reading about it.
Yeah. So
I also watched a video that had you in it recently. It was a story. It was a video about Paul Reimer, who is a well-known artist in the whole area, not just in Fernie. He's a sculptor, and he works in many different ways. And I'm going to take a little tiny break because I want to be able to finish.
You're doing well. It's rather interesting.
Anyway,
it's good that it's getting all documented, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, this video was really terrific, and I really enjoyed it. But I was quite not really surprised, because I know you're a very generous person and thoughtful. But you really, he credits you for helping him stay doing the work that he's doing, because there was a time when things were looking quite bleak, and you were the one that stepped in, encouraged him, helped him, hired him. And I can't remember what it was that you hired him to do.
Well, Paul Reimer is a blacksmith based in Cranbrook. He was at Fort Steele, and the Reimers were from the Crawford Bay area on Kootenay Lake. But they were artisans, and they did blacksmithing. So we, in our lodges, we wanted to put in hand-forged railings and hand-forged, you know, coat hooks in the beginning. So I went to Paul Reimer at Fort Steele, and he was just laid off when there was the funding wasn't there, and he said, "I'd love to do it, but I can't." So we worked out an arrangement where I underwrote his business endeavor, and then
he gave him the money that he needed.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's something. But, you know, I think I've done that a few times to people, but and now he's a very successful businessman, and a lot of the, you know, the artwork that you see in some of the lodges, you know, from the railings to the sculptures or to the ornate fabric of the fencing, he designed, and now he works in Montana, he works in Vancouver, he works in Banff quite a bit. He does a lot of business at the big lodges in Banff. And what he also does is he's into doing public art, and his work goes to Las Vegas, to Edmonton, to Vancouver, to Portland, you know, to Cranbrook, to the prairies. So he, you know, those sort of people they're all part of that social fabric that you have to have. And people, you know, when they come to communities, they look for that authenticity. And Paul is one of those individuals that had that skill.
And he's done wonderful sculptures for Cranbrook.
Yeah.
One of his sculptures is at the Eco Garden down by the police station.
Yep.
A beautiful angel. And I think I'm sure he helped out with the one at the art station.
Yeah, CPR Square,
Yeah,
just off
CPR.
Main Street in Fernie last year, with the local artist Michael Hepner.
Yes.
Michael Hepner designed it. It was essentially a piece of modern art, a large-scale public art of the fire that went through Fernie in the 1900s.
Right.
So it's a modern piece of flames and trees. And but Paul Reimer did all the blacksmith work for that, the steel work, and Paul and Michael had the design.
Yeah, because they were both there when we did the grand opening.
Yeah,
he's a wonderful, lovely man.
Oh, he's a great fellow.
Yeah, but I thought, isn't that just like Mike, ready there to help out?
Thanks, Mary.
No, you don't let people know exactly what a kind guy you are.
Thanks, Mary.
So true. Well, you know, you've seen all these changes to Fernie. What is the one change that you think has impacted the town the most?
That made the biggest change for the community of Fernie? I would say definitely when they had the courage to tear up the streets in downtown Fernie and repurpose those 3 blocks. And you know, that those poor businesses suffered all that summer in the rain and all the mud. And but you know, shortly after that, you saw the buildings getting refurbished, renovated. You saw more traffic. The retail sector grew. And then in the past years, you see the outdoor dining, the patios that add to the vibrancy and the vitality of Fernie. So I would say the biggest change has to be the, you know, the risk that the civic leaders took to build build downtown, you know, to refurbish it.
Yes.
So that's you know, as I said, that's one of the cornerstones of Fernie, along with the river, the ski hill, the mountains, is our downtown. And that will continue to be one of our pillars.
You were involved with the 1986-87 Winter Games.
Yeah, 1988 Olympics in Calgary.
No, the senior games that were held in Fernie. Were you here then?
Oh, well, I was just helping with the ski races, but no,
I
I was busy in Calgary. So I think other people like Roy McLean helped out with
there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking of the way the town looked back then, because we had over 2,000 competitors and all the people that came. I was involved as head of hospitality, and I remember taking some people downtown, and where the source is now, like that whole building was shut up because there was nobody in there, and there was cardboard on some of the shops, and I remember feeling so ashamed that our town looked so poorly to so many people. And I said, I hope to goodness someday this town will look different. And so now everywhere I go, people will say, Fernie's so pretty, Fernie's so pretty, and I think, yes, it is.
But you have that majestic view down, you know, with the new lights and the remodeled buildings. Down that corridor, right down towards the Lizard Range, or up towards parts of it towards the Three Sisters or Mount Hosmer. Yeah,
it's a beautiful photograph when you look down and you see the mountains and you see the downtown and you see the buildings, especially if there's some snow on the ground. And, and in the summer with all the flowers.
Oh, the flowers! And you know, the other thing that Fernie's done a wonderful job at is all the outdoor flowers, the flower pots and the hanging baskets on the decks of all the outdoor patios on the restaurants. you know, the entrances to businesses. That really adds
much.
character, and
Yeah.
and it's really welcoming for visitors and for all the residents.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your hope for Fernie for the future, do you think?
You know, my hope is that we, you know, that we can, you know, change is going to happen. I think we have to do is embrace it. You know, we have to work in harmony with the environment. We have to maintain our high standards of zoning and zoning and compliance. And then what we have to do is encourage people to invest, and that's more on the physical side. But then it's the social, you know, the social capital that, you know, Fernie is blessed because it is growing, our capital, and with, you know, more events, more youth groups, more after-school groups. You know, the public library does a wonderful job. The museum does a wonderful job. The art station does a wonderful job. The Rod and Gun Club in Fernie does as one of the most, one of the largest rod and gun clubs in British Columbia.
The oldest one.
Yeah, the oldest one, but also how they help out with the youth and help those different demographics.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and then the other really important thing is with, you know, the millennials are leaving, you know, town in the metropolitan cities, whether it's Vancouver or New York. Those millennials are leaving, and they're seeking communities like Fernie. And truly what we have to do is we have to continue to welcoming and inclusive. So that would be some of the things that I would have for my vision of Fernie.
And I like your word inclusive, because I think inclusive means that all demographic, all ages should be here. Because one of the things that I always heard from visitors was that Fernie is a real community. And for the longest time I wondered, what do they mean by real community? And then I realized what they meant. That there's people here that have called Fernie home forever. There's new people that, you know, there's people that have only been here a short while, and all of these people make up a tremendous community.
Yeah, and then you know, a lot of the, you know, a resident could be, you know, 50 years or born and raised, or a resident can be here a month. So being inclusive, but what so many of these folks are bringing to Fernie is that ability to volunteer. They want to volunteer and they want to help. So if you look at the you know, the cancer societies, the charitables, the Emily Bryden Youth Foundation, there's so many volunteers helping there, because volunteers are declining in other towns, but Fernie, we're still blessed with so many volunteers. So that is definitely a strength that we have here.
And certainly in the new sports community, there's tons of volunteers. I think in some of the older organizations, the volunteers are kind of going down because people are getting older. But with the younger, with the sports, boy, there's a lot of volunteers. I mean, the Nordic Society apparently has nearly 800
800 to 900 members each winter.
Okay, so there we go. I mean, look at that.
And they have you know, coaches who work at the mine. They have some of their coaches you know, come down from Calgary, and they're former Olympic athletes. They're coaching the young kids. So you know what, that we're lucky to have that diversity, to be inclusive, and to be close to some of these larger metropolitan areas.
And the Elk Valley Dolphins.
Yeah, the local swimming club.
They've got a huge membership there. You know, even with the hockey, there's been a resurgence, I think, of minor hockey, because for a while it had kind of dissipated, but they've got a large number. So yeah, all the sports seem to be thriving.
Yeah.
And of course soccer. Over 400 kids every year.
Yeah, in the minor soccer programs. No, it's you know what, and if you go around in a June evening, a sunny June evening, there's activities. There's people running. There's people. There's all the youth soccer. There's people at the bike park. So you know what, there's lots of activities, and what people want in communities now are those amenities that they can be involved with, or the kids can participate in.
Right, because I think Fernie was the first one in the Kootenays to have the dirt jumps.
Yeah.
And I noticed that now there's a lot of them copying us and getting them.
Well, the dirt jumps, but also the skateboard park.
Oh yes, the skateboard.
Yeah, that was the first. And now if you go to Rosslyn, Sparwood, Nelson, they all got their skateboard parks. But Mary, you're right. Fernie was the first that Napoleon Champagne did. That they led the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had some great people that had ideas and vision.
Yeah.
And that's the word, vision.
Yep. You have to have a vision.
Yeah, you have to have the vision.
Can't be afraid.
And you have to have the people that are willing to make that vision come true. Well, I'm really glad that you chose Fernie. I'm really glad that you decided to take risks. And thank you for helping Fernie grow. Thank you for helping all the individuals that you help. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mary.
And thank you for joining us.